Here we go, folks. College football starting tomorrow. The hype is really at its peak. The smoke's starting to clear, and the real stories are going to start to take shape. Think about a team coming off a rough season. Everybody's counting them out, and yet somehow they've got the pieces to surprise. It happens every year, and I'm excited to find out who that team is this year. Or maybe a powerhouse that everyone expects to stumble, only to quietly reload and remind you of why they're a favorite. It's going to happen this year too. That's when some of these bets get interesting. That's where you find value, where the odds don't tell the full story. Excited to kind of talk through some of the ones that I think are poised to overperform and the ones that are ready to shock the world. Those ones that like November, December come around and they're going to make things all about them. So here are my favorite plays, my favorite bets of the year. The teams that I think have the right mix of talent, coaching, and schedule to not just hit their win total that Vegas has for them, but to exceed them. So buckle up. But before we dive in, do me a favor, hit that like button if you love college football as much as I do. Subscribe so you don't miss any of my breakdowns this season. And then drop a comment below with the team that you're most excited to bet on this year. All right, let's talk about some of my favorite plays. I'm going to walk you through a handful of teams that are going to overperform. And we're going to start in the SEC with Texas A&M. A&M went 8-5 in Mike Elko's first season. And on paper, solid, especially when you consider what happened. Jimbo Fisher gets canned, the roster hemorrhages in the portal, and Connor Wegman, QB1, goes down after 3 games. And they still strung together a 7-game win streak with signature wins over Missouri and LSU. And I think that's a foundation that's getting set. Sure, the end of the season was ugly, 4 straight P4 losses, including the USC bowl collapse. But Elko hit reset. They returned 41 Letterman, and they add a top 10 recruiting class plus 13 transfers. I like a KC Concepcion from NC State, a Julian Humphrey from Georgia. Looking at Phil Steele's preview, he has them top 20 defensively, and PFF ranks their O-line one of the best in the nation. Also, that is trench stability. And the key truly is going to be Marcel Reed. As a freshman, he was a one read and go kind of guy, but he still threw for 1,800 yards, 15 total touchdowns, and rushed for 500. If he evolves from an athlete playing quarterback to a quarterback who can also run, A&M can lead the SEC in rushing while still staying balanced enough to win some of these tight games. We are not talking about them enough. They have some swing games in the conference that I think they can pull out: Auburn, Florida, at Mizzou, and South Carolina. 3 of those are at home in College Station, which is one of the toughest places to play in America. If you split some of those, and maybe you steal like a Notre Dame, an LSU, or a Texas, you're looking at 9 wins. And I really like the over for this group. That's why I'm on it. Moving up to Ann Arbor, Michigan's a little bit trickier. The official win total sits at 9.5, 9 from what I've seen. Juice down at 8.5. I do like the over at -170. A little bit safer for some portfolio stability. Why? They lost Mason Graham. They lost some key defensive anchors, and Bryce Underwood, who's a true freshman, is in at quarterback. And you've got some early road trips to Oklahoma, Nebraska, then USC later. And oftentimes freshman quarterbacks are going to make mistakes. So you can maybe see a world where you map out 3 losses. But here's the other side. This team beat Ohio State and Alabama last year with literally no quarterback play. The offensive line is still going to be physical and deep. I love Justice Haynes, the transfer from Bama at running back. Donovan McCulley at receiver is a big-time target for a young quarterback. And defensively, I like Derek Moore and Jair Hill. I think they give them difference-making talent. Now, 10-2 I think is realistic with this schedule. If you win 2 of those 3 that I mentioned earlier, maybe you sneak and win an Ohio State game as well. Underwood doesn't need to be a superstar. I think 9 wins, absolutely. 8.5 is just simply the floor. I think that's the play here. Schedule really isn't that bad. Michigan's going to have the defense. They're going to have the quarterback play. They're going to be dangerous again this year. All right, my favorite win total in the ACC is over 7.5 for Georgia Tech. And I didn't just dip a toe in whenever I saw this. I camped out for this one. Schedule's tough, but it's not brutal. You got no Notre Dame, a weird game like that. No Louisville. Middle of the schedule games, that's where coaching, preparation, and execution come in. I think you look at the middle of their schedule, you win 5 of those 7, you're going to hit the over. Frank Key knows how to motivate when he publicly tempers expectations like what we saw just this past week. I think players are going to start locking in. Haynes King's dynamic. I really like the depth that they have. I think the tight ends are ready. And we know that the offensive line can dominate smaller ACC fronts. The scrimmages might look a little rough to start, but the pieces are very much in play. A realistic projection is honestly 9 or 10 wins. I have this team in the college football playoff this year. They are the one that is going to sneak up on people, and by November, everybody's going to be talking about them because of the talent that they have and really what their schedule is going to allow them to do. And we'll know a lot in week 3 whenever they play Clemson. Now, Utah is quietly positioned to shock the Big 12 this year. FanDuel has their win total right around 7.5. Over is very heavily juiced, so they're really thinking an 8-win team this year. Devon Dampier comes in from New Mexico with his OC. He is going to be a spark, this dual threat quarterback who can revitalize the offense. I want you to think of it this way. We've been talking about like Iowa for years like this. They have the defense, and if they could just get a little bit of quarterback play, it's going to take them to the next level. This was a Utah team that in a lot of these games, I know 4-8 was horrible last year, we're right there. They have control at the line of scrimmage, a strong front seven, early non-conference games against Cal Poly, Wyoming, and then you got like a Colorado, Cincinnati are very winnable at home. You got UCLA in week 1 that will be a test, but I love Utah on that one. Success there sets the tone. Now, conference play overall for the Big 12 is volatile. Texas Tech lost their RB1. They bring in a lot of new guys. West Virginia's ground heavy. Arizona State, we'll see what they have this year. And BYU is really just new with a freshman at quarterback. I think Utah can very easily win the conference this year with Dampier, defense, and a proven Kyle Whittingham identity that actually has a threat on the quarterback position now. The question for you, are you buying or selling Oklahoma? I've seen people have them in the college football playoff, and I've seen some people say it's only 6 wins this year. Their over-under is set at 7.5, and I'm all in on the over. I think the floor, honestly, for this team is 8 wins. Some people are like, sure thing that it's going to be a 7 or 8 win season for them. I think that's the floor. John Mateer is a huge get, as well as Jaden Nott if he stays healthy. This is a completely different team. I love the weapons that they have out wide. They are deep at receiver, and they will be healthy this year. Deion Burks is going to have a tremendous season. I love Zion Kearney, Keontez Lewis, guys like that. They don't need a breakout, but I think they have mismatches everywhere. On defense, they have really a leader in R. Mason Thomas up front. They can get schemed against a little bit, but I think you're going to have open lanes for the rest of the D-line to cook because of him. They have a legit interior rush that forces teams to pass. And a really challenging schedule, I'll admit, but they have talent, coaching, and depth that really makes me feel like 7.5 is low. I think 8's the floor, and 9 or 10 is really possible for this group because of the talent that they actually have on offense. You're going to see positive regression for this team this year because this is a team that I think is ready to prove people wrong. Going back to the ACC, we got to talk about the favorite Clemson. There's a massive gap, I think, between them and the rest of the conference. Cade Klubnik's back at quarterback. You bring back your top 3 receivers. The offensive line is mostly intact. And the defense is filthy. One of the best in the country with the Peter Woods, TJ Parker, DeMonte Capar. Their culture matters. And I think Dabo really knows what he's doing. Overperforming expectations isn't new here. Last year, they weren't supposed to win the ACC. They competed, they won it. They really competed in the playoff game too. I love what I saw from Cade Klubnik. Offense, defense, coaching, depth, experience, they have it all that you need. I have Clemson winning the ACC this year. It's honestly obvious in my opinion, and you got to at least have it in your portfolio. Finally got to end with Ohio State. Big Ten favorite, reigning national champs. You got star power on both sides of the ball, and elite talent that remains despite turnover. This is just a plug-and-play system for them at this point. The second-tier guys are going to be the first string, third's going to move up, and so on and so forth. I think offensive line health and depth makes this potentially a more dominant offense than last year. Julian Sayin steps in at quarterback. I like him a lot because of the deep cast that they have with Jeremiah Smith and the transfer Max Clare at tight end. I cannot talk about him enough this year. Defense is still loaded with playmakers. They have depth to avoid injuries. One of the best players in all of college football in the secondary. And they have some tough games. Texas, at Washington, Penn State, Michigan. But Ohio State is built for the grind. And so I have them making the Big Ten title game. Not necessarily winning, although I do have them winning it. I think my favorite play is them just simply making the Big Ten title at -130. There you have it. My favorite plays of the 2025 season. I got the A&M over, Michigan over, Georgia Tech over, Utah over, Oklahoma over, Clemson to take the ACC, and Ohio State just to make the Big Ten championship. Coaching, talent, schedule, and context kind of all point these teams outperforming expectations in my opinion. Lock these in, enjoy the season. I'm watching some of these picks quietly surprise a lot of people and hit. If you like videos like this, go ahead, drop a like and subscribe for some more college football content throughout the season. I'll see you guys.